Here is a new and refreshing offer for our esteemed audience across the globe. The new AIT Cloud TV is an online streaming service that offers you attractive opportunities to view our rich, exciting, and entertaining programs anytime, anywhere. AIT Cloud TV is available on the web on www.ait.app, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Android TV. You can also download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Simply connect to the internet, download the app, register, and watch live or catch up on unlimited hours of exciting shows. AIT Cloud TV. TV on the go.
Hello, and welcome to the program. This is Moneyline with me, Nancy.
So we really have to keep thinking out of the box about how to get money to the least accessible in our society.
Everything has to be re-examined in our economy, in our health system.
We are also ensuring that government does not continue to manage this refinery, because government is not really equipped to manage refinery.
We need to come forward and do something different, so that we move from a situation of looking at things from purely a consumptive approach to a productive environment.
The government and the people need to really agree on the need for a departure from business as usual.
We are now on a process of recovery. It is what I call a bumpy journey to an uncertain destination.
This is Moneyline with me, Nancy Naji. It's so nice to know that you're joining us again today. All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, this is Moneyline with Nancy, where we'll break down every business headline for you. Money makes the world go round, so that is why you should really be invested with this program. Everything concerning money, we try to give you insights and breakdown. And today we're focusing on INEC's budget and 2023 elections. We told you at the beginning of the program, in case you're just waking up to the news, that the governorship elections as well as the state legislature elections have been postponed to March 18. My guests are with me right here. Jubril Shittu is the Chief Executive Officer of PPDC, while Adenike Aloba is the Program Director at DataFight. Welcome to you guys again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Happy Women's Day.
I know
a belated one.
Your sentiment is my sentiment. Like, yeah, thank you. But
thank you.
We want something more than just the beautiful, posters of Happy International. We know we're great.
Just embrace equity.
We know we're great. We know we're wonderful. We just need an enabling environment, and we need things to work. So yeah. Happy International Women's Day to us.
So it's our month, actually. March is our month.
Yes.
But you know, the question around gender or gender equity, gender equality, that would be a program of another day.
Yeah.
You know, because some men will say that you guys are half of the population.
INEC.
Why don't women even vote for women? That if women vote for women, we will be in positions of power. And to an extent, is right. You understand? Why can't we? But there are a lot of diverse issues.
There are a lot of diverse issues
around it.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that on another day. Today we are talking about INEC's budget and 2023 elections. Thank you very much for coming, guys. How can I forget to say thank you?
Thank
you know, we've been so soaked in all of this. Jubril, thank you. Did you wish us Happy Women's Day?
Yes, Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
Embrace equity.
Embrace everything.
All right, guys, so let's get started again. Okay, the last time we spoke, INEC had not shifted the governorship elections. Yes. I will not start with you now. Not ladies first. Let me go to Jubril and find out actually what's your sentiment. INEC came up with a statement yesterday that the governorship elections would now hold on the 18th of March. They gave the reasons due to the BVAS reconfiguration and all of that. How are people in your space taking all of this?
I think perhaps to start with the fact that we love dramatic, outlooks, because why would we have the announcement in the middle of the night? and this is the second time it's happening, you know, as it relates to elections. We had the presidential elections and the announcement of the results. Then, you know, we had the court cases. Well, as at yesterday evening, we already had the announcement from the Court of Appeal, you know, giving the directives which then led subsequently to the postponement of the elections. So at the back of their minds, I'm talking about INEC now, they already had that indication that Beavers was going to, you know, play a role in the governorship elections, and for that to happen, they needed to reconfigure the Beavers. Yeah. So the question again still comes down to what sort of elements are we looking at when it comes to electoral management? Are we looking at people that are specialists in logistics and project management here? And this is a very serious question that we need to ask ourselves. So now coming down to everyone scrambling, for instance, the National Universities Commission has instructed that students should resume to school and that schools should close on the 17th, just one day. So if Shetima had to travel from Kaduna down to Lagos to vote, what does that mean for his studies? You know, if Joy had to travel from Plateau all the way down to Nasarawa, sorry, not to Nasarawa, maybe to Zamfara, what does that mean for the votes? Will they be able to come back in time? And this is a period where we're talking about the cash situation. It's still biting. I mean, coming out of, you know, the house today in various parts of Abuja, the filling stations, there is no fuel. So that plays a role in what we call automatic potential disenfranchisement of voters. So we need to really be looking at this. Again, we've talked about the lack of integrity, you know, in the electoral process, because INEC as a body and the way the elections are structured, we could be having, for instance, if we had trust in the electoral system, the presidential and the governorship. We could. It's possible. But because there is no trust in the process.
That we could have both
yes,
elections
we could have both elections on the
day.
same day. It's possible. It's doable.
Wouldn't it be huge logistic task?
It will. But as we continue to improve on the technological processes, I mean, before we used to have elections where even from the collation centers, it takes hours even into the next day. But this time we had an improvement because the period for elections and the congestion of the polling units ensured that the announcement of the results at each of the polling units was faster. So we potentially could have, and if it could even stretch to 2 days, because people travel for elections in this country. Yeah. And we need to factor that into our election planning.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good insight. Yeah. Actually, because people travel for elections,
people do,
so
yes.
we need to factor that into. It's just that in this country we don't measure productivity. Yeah. So so things like this may just be lost on us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let me get your views, Nike.
Okay, so low voter turnout in the presidential elections, and we have already put out a setup that will almost guarantee low voter turnout for the governorship elections as well, because, you know, like my brother was saying, people travel for elections, and now we all have to reshuffle. The odd thing about all of this is this: the minute there was a court case was instituted around, you knew that it meant that whatever logistics needed to happen for Beavers to be made ready for governorship elections was going to be postponed. So what, did they have a plan? Like you were talking about project management, what was the plan? What was the timeline for reconfiguring Beavers post the presidential elections? Did they factor in the possibility of all these delays that we're seeing into that plan? Because if you did, then you know that if we're going to need, what they're telling us technically is they need 2 weeks to reconfigure Beavers. That's what it means. They need 2 weeks.
Up to 2 weeks.
It's about, because elections were supposed to hold this Saturday. Now it's holding
on the 18th.
On the 18th. A week later. It's about 10 days.
10 days.
I mean, if we take the announcement from. So if you had factored in that we need 10 days between one election and the other one, it meant the minute you had to be answering cases in court, that plan was off. So why wait until...
Okay. You know what just came to my head? For those of you that also interface with INEC, while INEC was coming up with this electoral plan, did they at any time announced that after a presidential election, there will be a reconfiguration of beavers for the state elections. Was it at any time? Because I'm struggling to search my brain if I saw anything like that.
No.
Has the INEC, or did the INEC chairman or even INEC officials tell us while we've been planning for this, perhaps in the last 1 year or 4 years ago, that there would be a beavers, and after the presidential election, there will be a reconfiguration of beavers? I don't know.
There was no announcement like that, but I think, I mean, for someone like us who are in the civic tech space, we knew that there were going to be some, it has stored data. It doesn't have limitless capacity. The beavers doesn't have limitless capacity to keep data. So it made sense that there needed to be some kind of transference of that data. I mean, there have been arguments, oh, why is it not, linked to the cloud directly so that, it's, but those arguments are moot now. The point is there was no announcement around that. But I think we all, I mean, those who are a little bit aware about how some of this technology works, assume that, yes, there was going to be a need for a cleanup process, for the beavers. But they knew this as well. So the minute something interrupted that plan, so this is now another additional 1 week for coppers who were already complaining about how they've been treated by INEC to now not be able to do what they've signed up to do and get back to their regular lives. What is the cost implication for this extension? What does it mean for their logistics plans? What's the cost implication for the technicians that they now have to keep on, for an extra about 10 days? What is the implication? So they had a plan. We cannot imagine that they don't have a plan, because that would be absurd. But again, this speaks to, like you were saying, how do we measure productivity? A number of the presidential candidates have talked about helping Nigeria to do better, boosting the economy and stuff like this. But if we're going to be cutting out waste, you have to factor in the waste that comes into our processes, our governance processes, such as this one, where, it's not arbitrary, but it's almost arbitrary. It's almost like, yeah, you guys have to vote, so whatever we say goes. You knew this was going to happen the minute the presidential elections started, the minute the contest started on the presidential elections. You knew this was going to happen. Why wait until now?
Okay. Jubril, I see that you were jotting some things down.
Yes,
You want to let me into your thoughts?
The other part is that following the presidential elections, Nigerians are still waiting for some answers. We talked about this the last time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the statement came out, and maybe it would be good to interrogate if their statement has actually spoken to some elements of some of the yearnings.
It doesn't. It does not. No.
Yes.
The statement.
If we have that statement, we can actually put it on there. I actually saw that statement on their official Twitter handle, telling us of the rescheduling of this governorship elections and what have you. What were you looking for in that statement that you did not see?
The process. Because Nigerians were confused and perhaps still remain confused about the exact process.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that have been raised by citizens, by civil society, and even the political parties.
Yeah.
And it's not just you saying maybe just one or two political parties raising this as an issue. It's multiple political parties raising, that lack of clarity on the process. The second has to do with the guaranteed safety of the citizenry during the elections, because we saw the violence. We saw the voter oppression. So we needed INEC, and we still need INEC to speak to this. So those two major things
Well, INEC is not in charge of security. And I think the IG has also spoken. I saw, I think during the week, convening a security meeting and all of that, because INEC is not in charge of security. So INEC chairman had to interfere. The central bank governor for cash and IGP for security.
I personally asked the question during, in the build-up to elections. What conversations, especially, in the Southeast, there were so much, interruptions and so much disturbances of INEC's offices being burnt. And I asked the question, we know that you are not the one deploying police officers. You don't have a list of names to say you are going to Enugu, you are going to Taraba. But what kind of interface are you having with the security operatives to say, hey, what are you doing? Because don't they also need that assurance? This is not just about us.
It's also about their staff.
It's also about their staff. It's also about the people that they've sent to do the work. So one of the questions that I was asking is, what kind of interface are you having? What conversations are you having? So that yes, they're not in charge, but they can give assurances. For instance, the beavers that is at the center of
they can give assurances based on what the IG has told them.
Yes,
yes,
but they may not have control over what the security
what they
operatives
also
do.
have control over is the electoral officers. And we saw, at least on social media, some of the acts of compromise. And we have an electoral offences law. So we should be seeing that strong action, at least some early form of, pronouncements. At least we saw that with the House of Reps in Kano, where, the
House of Reps member?
The House of Reps member was denied, and the INEC official came out to say he was forced to sign those papers under duress, and INEC took action. So we need to see more of that posturing to guarantee that, yes.
Let's take a look a bit more into INEC's budget. It's International Women's Day. It's Women's Month, since Women's Day was March 8th. Now, let's take another part that caught our interest there is the budget. 269.45 million naira allocated for gender and inclusivity. I actually don't know what that means, but perhaps, Nike, you have an idea. And I would also like both of you, to speak as to, because when we did this on Tuesday, someone actually sent me to it. I was like, oh, Nancy, you should know that there's a difference between budget and money released. And I said, of course I know that.
Yes.
But this was the amount that was approved after all said and done. So perhaps is this also what the Finance Ministry released to INEC to do this election? And you know that when it comes to election matters, we are very emotional about it. Even the lawmakers will say, give INEC everything they want to, even if they want, just give it to them. And this is away from their annual budget of 50 billion. This is just for them, for INEC. This is just for the elections. So what do you have to say about that, Nike, as you answer the question?
Let me start from the question. The question you just raised is the same question that we grapple with in the accountability and transparency, especially around government spending. It's the question of, oftentimes we are only able to say why, what, when, after the fact. So really, until we see a budget performance report, for instance, or until we can't say, oh yeah, this was how much was budgeted, this was how much was released, we can't only work with the budget that we see in front of us. If INEC feels like, well, you guys keep talking about 305 billion, they gave us 100 billion, well, you have the floor, tell us. So let's know whether to carry our hackles and go and meet, the Ministry of Finance and say, I don't understand. How did you expect them to carry out? But if we can only work with data as it's available, the truth as of now is 305 billion, and the budget as it's broken down is what we're working with.
And INEC hasn't come to say, this is not
what
we're giving.
Yes. And on the subject of gender and inclusivity, again, I would love to have a sit down with, maybe not the INEC chairman, perhaps we are putting a lot on the INEC chairman. Maybe there's someone who is in charge of maybe gender, diversity and inclusivity in Nigeria's elections or anything like that. Because what was this budget for? This 269.45 million, what was it for? We were talking about this the last time, that we did not see a lot of materials around, voter education or anything like that from INEC. So perhaps this budget was to focus on encouraging women to come out to vote, or it bears, and when you look at the end result of this, when you look at, how many women are voted into the National Assembly, 3 Senate, 15 House of Rep, out of a possible how many seats? It's abysmal, and it has continued to fall from the
every
beginning
4
of the
years.
Fourth Republic.
Yes.
It continues to fall. So I wonder, it makes sense that INEC says, oh, we want to increase. The budgeting shows that they are sensitive to the questions of inclusivity, issues of persons with disability, issues of women or marginalized groups. Their budgeting says, oh, we're aware, we listened, we hear that, there's some need to pay better attention to that. But their actions and the end result of these elections makes us want to question what was 269 million for. And when you say gender, and this is the thing about budgeting again, where we say you can't have this opaque, this hard to understand descriptions for budgeting. It just doesn't make sense. You have to, if accountability is the goal, I mean, I would imagine that publishing your budget is, oh yeah, you guys see what we're doing. If accountability is the goal, if transparency is the goal, then you have to break it down. Maybe, oh, we want to do special campaigning around, or maybe we want to do special capacity building for electoral officers to be able to know how to, deal with persons with disability, or we want to do some special campaigning for women to come out en masse to vote. The one thing that I am looking forward to, and I to be honest, I have to explore what it means for privacy, data privacy and all, but I would love to see a disaggregated vote cast by gender.
Okay.
Because there's an assumption that, there's an anecdotal assumption that...
But there's a disaggregation of data around...
registered voters.
Around registered
but
voters.
Around
because we even have for housewives, artisans and all that.
But
around
around
voters.
Let's know if the challenge is that, women are not coming out to vote, or the challenge, that's only when we can say women are not voting for women, because if it turns out, well, the percentage of women who come out to vote anyways is inconsequential to changing, the course of having more women.
Okay.
I would love to see that, and I don't know what that will mean in terms of the logistics of getting that data, but it'll be interesting to see how many women are actually coming out to vote.
Okay, Jubril?
Yes, to put things in sharper perspective, when you were talking about the opaque processes around budgeting and the audits, when we're talking about the modern era, we talk about the modern era starting from the end of from the 1940s, essentially. And from the start of the Cold War, you now had the contemporary modern era. Then you had our independence at 1960. But our audit law predates our independence date. Our audit law is a 1958 law. And we're in 2023. So that audit law, which should empower the Auditor General of the Federation to demand accountability from governments, ministries, departments, and agencies, simply doesn't have that power.
Is that why we always see the Auditor General always shouting all the time?
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's always...
Yes. Like that's all the power he has.
It, but he can't even buy it.
He has it, but he can't. Then the second part is that the structure of our lawmaking, and it's quite unfortunate to see that currently we're having just 3 out of 109 senators that are female in this current
I think this is the
National Assembly.
This
since
is the
1999,
so
yes, since the 1999 class, the 1999 to 2003. Yes, because that was 3.6%. This is the worst that we've ever seen since then. So what we are saying is that we also need to look at, when we talk about INEC, we need to look at the electoral laws. How can INEC regulate political parties to ensure that the entry-level barriers, because we've not even started from that, how much is it to purchase a form?
I was coming to that because in the course of this journey, this electoral journey, we've not even talked about even the amount that political parties spend.
Yes.
There's a stipulated amount, campaign finance. Who monitors that? INEC is supposed to do that.
Yes, INEC is supposed to do that. And INEC says
INEC do that enough?
They have 774 million for elections and party monitoring.
Yes. So INEC doesn't have the capacity, and the law is limited.
In what sense?
So the law says in Section 88 that INEC, the political parties, 360 days before the E-Day, that's the election day, and not exceeding 6 months after, should submit their audited reports of their party spending. But then the same law says that for an individual that is running for president, you're allowed to spend up to $10 million. That's about 5 billion naira. Now, as an individual, if I am an individual, if I have a charity, and the charity invites me for an event and says, oh, we've shared food to 20 million Nigerians.
That counts.
That is not linked to myself as an individual. That already is a gap. If I spend on the media,
as an individual, not as a political party.
As a political party.
Yeah.
It's not linked to my spending. If my friends
spend
for me, and that happens
so
a lot.
it's, I mean,
we saw where people were donating to buy forms. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the challenges that we have. But the entry-level barriers, INEC has that power to lower the entry-level barriers. And it's not because of, you know, when we're talking about gender equity, you know, it's about what is appropriate.
Okay, let's just quickly take a break. And when we return, we'll continue the conversation on INEC's budget and the value it indeed brings or it is delivering. We'll be getting to the concluding part of the show. Let's quickly take this break. All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, I think you've actually missed a lot, but you can, for the next 5 minutes, you can stick with us. My guests are still here. Jubril Shittu is the Chief Executive Officer at PPDC, while Adenike Aloba is the Program Director at DataFight. All right, let's take this time to, you know what also coming to my mind, like, should you throw away the baby with the bathwater? I've heard that since presidential elections, you know. What do you think about that concerning how much value INEC has delivered? Vis-a-vis, a lot of people have also called for the way INEC is constructed, that perhaps we need to deconstruct so that we can get more value in terms of even logistics management, project management. This is a project you do every 4 years, you know. Also relating to elections are expensive globally. I understand that, guys, and I know that. I've looked at budgets of the Kenyan election, for example. The one that brought in William Ruto is the most expensive Kenyan.
Yes,
I think about 40.9 billion Kenyan shillings. US also, around the world. So how do you really just oppose that? But something also struck me that in the last 4 years, INEC has spent about 341 billion naira on elections. And that is almost half of what was received in the last 19 years. I'm struggling to blame it all on inflation. But I'm also looking at, are there other ways that INEC can trim here? Just like you said on Tuesday, that are there some recyclable things we can use, you know, and all of that. So, Jubril, quickly.
Yes, so
I know I've raised a lot of issues, but
yes, I think I'll start with the costs of elections. We need to push for integrity in our electoral processes. And INEC, as the umpire, the referee, really needs to ensure that it's giving Nigerians value for money. So, yes, again, the introduction of technology has increased the expenses because before now we did not have the voter registration, even for the party agents, the observers, the political parties, now they can go and accredit themselves virtually. Even when I had to revalidate my registration, I did it from the comfort of my home. So INEC has, you know, rightly introduced technology to the process. But even with the introduction of technology, the communication gap is something INEC needs to address. INEC needs to communicate with Nigerians to ensure that...
Is it INEC is not communicating, or is not communicating the right information that people need, or it should communicate more information added to the one that it has communicated, because more questions are being asked now.
I think it's the nature of the communication as much as the content of the communication. For instance, if you look at the press release, it says, oh yes, we're going to be reconfiguring the BVAS. But the issue is this, that BVAS is at the center of controversy right now. anything happens with the governorship elections, people are coming for INEC and saying they did something when they reconfigured. I feel like the Nigerian, I use this word loosely, elite, which would include, you know, people in governance, institutions like INEC. I think that we really do take for granted the fact that I think we take it too far. I don't owe you an explanation, I'm just doing my job. Because what you should be, it's our money, it's our country. So it's a little extra step to say, please, you know it's already at the center of controversy. So it's a little extra step to explain yourself a little better, to come on Moneyline with Nancy and say, you know, we just want to take this opportunity to explain. This is the process for reconfiguration of a BVAS. This is what happens to the data on a BVAS when it is reconfigured. So that by the time you're done with governorship elections, people don't come back and say, oh, they have mixed all the numbers. Because just wait for it. Just wait for it, you'll see.
It's just by the corner.
Yes. Again, we also need to look at the cost of electoral disputes. The pre-election disputes alone were 666. And let's just think for a second. Just yesterday, at least we had the final announcement of the various SANs, that's the senior advocates, that were hired for at least the 3 leading candidates, you know, and the president-elect, you know, for the election. And each of them, or minimum 12 SANs. So multiply that times the number of cases. And when we are looking at the justice sector, we're talking about at least 70,000 awaiting trial inmates. So the costs, again, extends just beyond the elections to also impact on our judicial systems and processes. And that's something we need to resolve.
You know, each time that we start this conversation, it's as if we shouldn't end it. You know, because what's also coming to my mind, what you mentioned earlier, presidential candidates, I think 5 billion naira and all of that. Okay, the presidential elections have come and gone. Are Nigerians even interrogating even the presidential candidate, even the House of Reps members or the senators? How much they spend? You know, how much is their salary, for example, for that 4 years? Is their salary equals to or close to what their forms?
You know, to be fair,
you know, all of that.
Election financing is a problem across the world.
Well, I understand that.
But, you know, when it comes to Nigerian opacity and the lack of transparency, we are a little far worse. At least, you know, in America, for instance, there's a lot of conversation. They have a lot of loopholes that they try to use, but it's not like you can simply just do anything you want. Right now, it feels as if politicians, political parties can do anything they want. And unfortunately, anything they want is not translating to more women in government. Sorry, I just had to end on that note.
There is one thing we can do.
Very quickly, we
need a study. And this has happened in a few other African countries. Get some legislators together, get some political parties. It doesn't have to be the biggest of the parties. And let's have that study of how much each individual spends. We'll be able to estimate the cost.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. More questions. But all eyes are on INEC right now, 18th of March, and we wish them well.
We do.
Actually, and hope that the challenges we saw at the presidential election, that they will be able to, you know, not occur anymore. So thank you to you both for coming again.
Thank you for having us.
All right, I've been speaking to Adenike Aloba, who is to my immediate right. She is the project director at DataFight. Jubril Shittu is the chief executive officer at PPDC to my far right. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for watching. Join me again next time. I am Nancy Najibi, the best you can be, and better change that you want to see. Bye now.